So if you're looking to develop explosiveness, speed and power in your golf swing, then it's really important that you try and develop better connection with the ground by improving what we call your ground reaction forces. So you can do that by a number of different training protocols such as plyometrics or jump training. So this video is going to show you a number of different exercises that you can do at home with minimal equipment that are going to help you to use the ground better, so you can transfer that into your swing and create more force, power and explosiveness in your golf swing. So these exercises are all great for people who are new to plyometrics or jump training, and the first thing that we need to do is we need to teach you how to land appropriately and also try and create some stiffness through the muscles and tendons, okay? That stiffness is then going to allow you to become more elastic, and that's where we create this kind of coil spring and the power and explosiveness. So we're going to start with what we call some altitude landings. You can step on anything that is height. What I would say to begin with, if you're quite new to these, is start at a lower height and then build it to something around about kind of like the 60 centimetre, 24 inch kind of height, okay? So you're going to stand onto your box or your bed or your sofa, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're literally just going to drop off and then catch that landing. You want to kind of land on the balls of your feet, but you don't want to kind of absorb the force too much, and make sure there's kind of a stiffness through the core and through the legs as you just kind of stick that landing, okay? So step onto your box, step off and land, okay? So you see that kind of nice control, not too much knee bend. I'll show you once more. Step off and then land and stick that landing. So start with a lower box, build up the height, okay, and once you've kind of got that control, then you're ready to move on to the next exercise. So once you've developed the ability to land, then we can move on to more jumping exercises where you can actually focus on kind of getting your feet off the ground and then using that landing position as you come back down, okay? So this is a squat jump. I'm going to do body weight to begin with, and that's how I would encourage you to start it. If you want to add weight to it, you can hold a kettlebell kind of in between your legs, or you can take some weight out to the side, or even if you feel like you're ready to progress, you can even put a barbell onto your back if obviously you're in a gym. So okay, so what we're going to do is you're just going to squat down and we're just going to spring up, trying to get as much height as we want. I like to start by just placing your hands onto your hips, okay? So that means that all the force is just being generated through the feet, okay, not just a drive with the arms, okay? So hands onto the hips, just squat down and then drive up and then nice land, okay? What I would try and encourage you to do is try and keep your legs nice and straight as you extend upwards, okay? So try not to tuck the knees up. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get height from the floor by the forces placed into the floor, as opposed to just bringing the knees up, okay? And that's something I see a lot when people start moving on to box jumps, where they will increase the height of the box, but all they are doing is just lifting the knees up into what we call hip flexion, to kind of look as if they're getting that height. So I want you to make sure you're really pushing off that floor, really think about the intention of driving off the balls of the feet into the air, okay? I'll show you again. So squat down, drive, and then catch that landing with that same stiffness that you've been doing on them altitude drops. So once you've got more comfortable kind of driving off of the floor into them squat jumps, then we can start to add what we call a little bit of rotation. So I really like to kind of load into the hip and then drive off, and that's kind of creating this rotational element. As well as loading into the hip, obviously that's really important for kind of creating power and using the legs in the downswing, so it transfers really well across to the golf swing, okay? So what you're going to do is you're just going to stand on 2 feet. I want you to kind of load into the hip, okay? So this would be me being a right-handed golfer, loading into the right hip and then driving forward into like a broad jump. So I want to be facing towards that wall. So there's a little bit of rotation in there, load in and then push and then jump as far as you can and then catch the landing again with the stiffness, okay? So I'll show you that again. Wind into the hips and really get it into that glute, into the hip, drive off and then jump as far as you can, and again, nice solid landing. Obviously I would do them sat up based on your golf side, but then I would also transfer it and go to the other side. So if you're right-handed golfer, then go to the left, drive into the hip and jump as far as you can, landing nice and steady on them 2 feet, okay? So just work on that rotation and work on trying to get as much distance as you can in that. I'm going to add a little bit of load into this next exercise. I'm just using a weighted medicine ball, but you can use a light dumbbell. So this is a 4 kilogram ball. You can use a light dumbbell around about the same weight, or you could even use a football at home, okay? What we're going to now do is, again, try and load into the hip, but we're just adding a little bit of weight in the upper body just to create some upper body rotation as well, okay? So what we're going to do is we're just going to jump from side to side. So the jump is really important, but also the landing and the load into the hip. And now we're just progressing onto single legs. It's a little bit more challenging than the double leg exercises that we've just covered, okay? So you're going to hold on to the ball, okay? So I'm onto that right leg, and you see there's kind of a little load into the hip. I'm just taking that ball away, so that rotation through the upper body, and then I'm just going to jump to the other side, try and keep your balance, and then load again, jump to the side, try and keep your balance. So you want to really try and stick onto that leg, create some bit of stability through that hip, and then again, just load up, try and get your balance, load up, and try and keep your balance, okay? So you can see that kind of load and then drive. So we're just adding that upper body rotational element and also that stability through the hip. So we're stabilising with land, trying to balance, and then driving out of that hip again. So again, that's really good for lateral force production, which is obviously really prevalent in the golf swing. We want that kind of out of the hip drive and push through in towards that downswing. So as we progress from landings to double legs to single legs and rotation, we then want to try and get a little bit more reactive and a little bit more explosive, and this is more typical of a true plyometric, okay? So it's reacting with the ground and then trying to kind of change the direction as fast as we can. It doesn't look anything like the golf swing, but in terms of loading into the hip and moving the body one way and then exploding as fast as we can the other way, it has a similar kind of effect. It's all about developing what we call the stretch shortening cycle. So for this exercise, I'm going to use a box. You can use anything that's of a little bit of height just to make this a little bit more reactive. You can even just jump from the floor and rebound out of it, so you don't need the box, but it just adds that kind of element of striking the floor and bouncing straight away, okay? So I'm going to stand on whatever you're using at home, okay? And all I'm going to do is land, but then try and jump as fast as I can. So I drop and then jump straight into kind of a broad jump, okay? What we're looking for is as your feet hit the floor, we are looking for that ground contact time to be as minimal as possible. So as soon as your feet hit the floor, we want to be trying to get straight back out of them. Okay, so the feet are touching the floor for a minimal amount of time. I'll just show that one again for you. So we drop off, dive, and then straight out. Again, through the balls of the feet, try to make sure there's not too much knee bend as you're kind of coming into that ground and spring off as fast as possible. Again, just think about the intention of using that ground to drive off, and again you can measure how far you're jumping. As it's a broad jump, you can kind of measure the distance that you're starting to cover with each jump, and that will just show you how explosive you're getting. It is difficult to judge kind of the contact time on the floor unless you're using any kind of like scientific kind of maths and things, so that's quite difficult, but just using the kind of distance that you're jumping is a good way to measure progress, okay? So try that one again. Like I say, you don't need the box, you can just jump off the floor onto it and just trying to get as reactive and as explosive as you possibly can. So have a go at them exercises. What I would suggest is, if you are quite new to plyometrics or any other form of jump training, is just start with the first exercise, and as you get better at landing and controlling that landing, then you can progress through the other exercises. Keep the sets and repetitions low, so I would recommend you do 3 sets of 4 of each exercise. That's because we want to keep the intention and explosiveness as high as possible, and as you kind of increase the reps, you will see that kind of reduces, and it's obviously to the detriment of the exercise. So keep the reps nice and low, trying to get as explosive as possible and progress through each exercise, and what you should find is that you get more explosive, generate more force and power from the floor, and hopefully this will result in hitting the ball further once you hit the golf course.